at abc.net.au/trailblazers. Hurry, entries close November 10.
4:08. Today, the WA government announced tough new laws aimed at disrupting bikie gangs. The laws mean bikies won't be able to wear gang insignia or even visible gang tattoos when in public. This morning, Attorney-General John Quigley told the ABC's Nadia Metsopoulos the new laws were aimed at disrupting these organisations.
A number of governments have tried to bring in laws against the bikies, and you might recall that Christian Porter brought in laws and he said this will drag a razor across the bikies' back. In fact, the laws were so useless they were never ever used because the High Court kept on throwing them out because the High Court was always being invited to determine for itself whether, for example, the rebels are an outlaw gang. All of Western Australia knows they're an outlaw gang, so this time I've named in the legislation the 46 groups. Not all of them in Western Australia at the moment, but we don't want them coming here. So I've named the 46 groups, so it's beyond challenge who we're talking about. Now, in relation to those groups, it will be an offence, a serious offence, for any person to display the insignia of that group. Any person displaying the insignia of that group is liable to prosecution. And insignia is defined not only as the colour patches they wear on their clothing, but also badges, labels, etc., and tattoos. For people with insignia tattoo, how they go about their business in public is their problem, not mine. But if they go about their business in public bearing their tattoo for all to see, and that tattoo is a tattoo of insignia, they are liable to be arrested on the spot, dragged off to the source.
And what about if somebody has those tattoos on their face, as some do?
Well, those people have to manage that. They can use makeup, foundation cream, zinc cream, or have it removed. There's going to be police harassment of the bikies, ongoing. You'll see this over the next few days. There will be ongoing harassment of the bikies. So it's a question, Nadia, of coming up with strategies to disrupt them in their evil trade.
Ongoing harassment and disruption, says the Attorney-General John Quigley, speaking to Nadia Metsopoulos earlier today. Now, of course, these gangs have chapters in all corners of regional WA, so will these new laws have any impact on criminal behaviour? Dr. Terry Goldsworthy is an Associate Professor in Criminology at Bond University and has extensively researched bikie laws across Australia. Good afternoon.
Yeah, hi, Stan.
The Attorney-General uses words like harassment and disruption. Do you think this is a good strategy?
Oh, look, I've got to say I'm gobsmacked by the comments just made by your Chief Law Officer. I've never heard comments made like that before. I would be very concerned if that's the kind of mentality that is going to be given to the police to engage in harassment. That is not the role of the police. The role of police is to maintain public order and fight crime. So I am totally amazed that he would actually make those comments. In terms of consorting laws, there's been a number of, examinations conducted on data and evidence that show that they are ineffective. And we hear this term disrupt. Well, if you actually ask the Attorney-General to say how they're going to disrupt, he probably wouldn't be able to answer, nor would he be able to answer what criminal offences are they going to disrupt, because there's no criminality attached to the consorting laws in any state in Australia. So I'd imagine the WA will be the same. I haven't seen the detail of the bill. It doesn't appear to be publicly available yet. But their previous forms of consorting put before the Parliament in WA expressly provided that there didn't have to be any criminal activity attached to the consorting. So the disruption is a political byline.
You don't think there's any strategy in making life really hard for these sorts of, gangs, so maybe they give up or water down what they're doing?
Well, I mean, it comes back to the myth that all bikies are criminals. We know from data in Queensland, 8 years' worth of data, that 40% of them had a criminal history, the rest didn't. The fallacy that they're all criminals isn't correct. The fallacy and the myth that they're the pinnacle of organised crime and the big wheel in there is also incorrect. We've examined data through the ACT over 20 years, and as I said, 6 years, for Queensland. And we found that in terms of, organised crime offences, murder, fraud, possession of weapons, robbery, drug offences, etc., bikies contributed less than 1%. And we've had 2 inquiries into organised crime in Queensland by the current Labor government, where the inquiry said the role of bikies is overstated by the police and the media and politicians. They just make good copy. They're the usual suspects. And, traditional techniques with a competent police service can police the bikies adequately.
If you're listening this afternoon, your response to the comments from Dr. Terry Goldsworthy and the comments you heard from the Attorney General John Quigley, 0448 922 604. Steve writes, Stan, how do the new laws affect biker groups who also wear a T-shirt or a singlet with the group name? Guys who are just motorcycle enthusiasts who get together and raise money for charity groups. That's Steve. Brett and Dunsborough, what happens if they use a name not listed? That's a good point. Mick says, I wouldn't disrupt a bikie. 0448 922 604. You've spoken a little bit about it. You've looked into the impact these sorts of consorting laws have in other states on bikie groups. Do they have any impact at all? No police service has been able to show conclusively that consorting laws disrupt any form of organised crime. And that's what these consorting laws are there for. They're not there for obscene language or, public nuisance offences. They're there designed to disrupt organised crime. No police service has been able to put forward evidence to indicate they do that. If you look at... and it was an interesting comment by the Attorney General to say that he dismissed the courts in terms of deciding if these organisations are criminal, because Western Australia has in fact had legislation since 2012, the Criminal Organisations Control Bill, which they can use to target and impose criminal sanctions on groups who are in declared criminal organisations. The problem with that is that you need to show evidence to the courts, and that is where these things always fall down, is that the police never want to go and provide the evidence to the courts to show that these are criminal enterprises, etc., because most of the time it doesn't exist. We know from empirical research that's done overseas and here that most bikies who do engage in crime do so usually outside of outside of the gang. It's not a gang whole thing. It's one or two members go off the external group and do some criminal activity. That is the norm of bikie criminal activity for those who do criminal activity. And as I said, not all of them have criminal histories. So just a couple of bad bananas in the fruit bowl.
Oh, look, I mean, they have I think it was 40% had criminal histories in Queensland, so a fair slab have it. But what was never established in either of the 2 inquiries that we had up here, nor by the data we've looked at or overseas studies, is that the gang is used for criminal purposes. So you may have individuals in the gang who have criminal activities, but the gang itself is not used for criminal purposes. And this legislation presumes that that is the case, and clearly the evidence that we've seen shows that that is not the case.
Hey, Dr. Goldsworthy, thank you for your time. Appreciate it this afternoon.
Thank you.
Dr. Terry Goldsworthy, Associate Professor in Criminology at Bond University. He's done a lot of research into these laws and bikie gangs, mitigation of bikie gangs, particularly in Queensland. This texter, these gangs hate being called bikies. They like bikers. Fact. Okay. Fair call. I don't want to make anyone angry. 0448 922 604. John Quigley says these are about disrupting bikie gangs. And he says they will be harassed in the coming days. 1300 545 222.
Conversations. Spend an hour in the life of someone else.
Umana is come into the solar system from another star system.
Someone who has seen and done remarkable things.
And it's the first large object that was recognised to do that. And this is going to become a new branch of astronomy. Interstellar visitors.
Hear the latest